Hello everyone, welcome back to the artoftrading.net videos. This is Trader Stewie with you again. I just wanted to do a video quickly, hopefully, 5, 6, 7 minute video about a trade that we did last week here at the artoftrading.net service. We took a trade. We tried our best not to do too much trading last week, as the indexes were acting a little bit on the weak side. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. It turned into a very, very news-driven week, so it makes it a lot harder, to anticipate moves and, so I really, really tried my best to just kind of like slow down, the pace of the trading activity, um, until Friday, when we landed on this trade setup here. It looked really, really good to me, so we ended up taking it, and I just want to walk you quickly through it and just show you exactly how we played it and what I saw in the trade to make me take it, and how we managed the trade, entry and exit and so on. So here is what MNST, this is Monster Beverage Corporation, MNST. It's a setup that we've been watching for a while, and as you can see here, the stock over the last, few months, a few weeks, it's been in a nice uptrend. And as you can see here, it's respected the 20-day exponential moving average, which is the 20-day moving average basically. And you can see how every time the stock rallied, it's pulled back to test it, hold it, and then bounces right back up. So it's obeyed that 20-day moving average really, really well. Until here, we had a test here. Until recently, we had a nice little test here. It pulled back, right on 20-day moving average, and then the very next day it gaps up and then starts to run and had a nice close here. This was on Tuesday. This was a Tuesday. This was on the Tuesday candle. No, this was on the Wednesday candle, Wednesday of last week. Um, and then and then so you can see here it had a nice close here. Volume wasn't that great, but that doesn't matter. You always want to follow, the price. Price always beats volume. So just make sure that you're watching what the price action does. Volume would be a great confirmation, but it's not necessary to have it. Just make sure that you remember price always comes first before anything else. At least in my book it does. So as you can see here, the stock, if you draw some trend lines here, it kind of, you can say this was kind of like a bull flag, sort of pattern here. It had, if you connect these highs over here, it's made almost like, like a little mini bull flag, or or a little, pennant, or a small little wedge, whatever. Either way, this pattern here has a bullish feel to it. So that's what I picked up on. And then, so I added it to the watch list, which I email every night to subscribers of the artoftrading.net. and and then, as you can see here, the stock, the very next day, it gaps up on this candle right here. This candle right here was a Thursday. So this was Wednesday. That was when the stock caught my attention on this very, very long, strong candle. And then the very next day, the stock gaps up. So it gaps up, but guess what? It closes lower. So, that's not ideal. You ideally want to see a stock that gaps up and then kind of keeps running. But, we don't live in a perfect world, and, you just have to, just, it doesn't mean that the pattern is busted. It just means, that there's a little bit of hesitation here, but, don't take your eyes off it. Keep watching it. Don't give up on the setup yet. So as you can see, it gaps up and then closes down. And I remember on this day the market was up big. So even though the stock gapped up, it had a negative close. The stock market, the Dow Jones, I think the Nasdaq, they both had like very, very strong days on Thursday. So that was a little bit discouraging to see. But like I said, don't give up on the pattern. Keep watching it. My new entry was as soon as I saw it close down like that, it gaps up, closes down. So my new entry became a break of the high of this candle. So if the stock on Friday, if it opens down and then starts to gather strength, momentum, and then break out through this candle's high here, this is something I want to be interested in, because now this is starting to show me that it's becoming strong again. So Don't give up on the setup. As you can see here, let me show you. Let's take out this one here. Hold on. Okay, so don't give up on the previous setup. It's just morphed. You know, instead of looking at the same exact play, redraw a different trend line. And as you can see here, when you redraw the trend line here, all of a sudden now you're looking at a new area of resistance on this candle. There's resistance on this one, on this one, and on this one. So as you can see here, the 64 area all of a sudden becomes an area of interest, because you can see here around 64 it's failed once, it's failed twice, it's failed 3 times, and now here guess what, it gapped up exactly and it stalled out at 64 before it pulled back. The very next day the stock looks like this. So this was Friday right here. And as you can see on the daily chart, when we draw the horizontal trend line that shows 64 being the new area, the new hurdle, being 64 being the new obstacle for MNST to get over. Now, once we zoomed into the 5-minute charts, this is what we saw. This is what I saw on the 5-minute chart. So this was Thursday right here on the 5-minute chart. This was Thursday. You see how it gaps up? The stock gapped up here, and then the whole day kind of pretty much drifted lower. But like I said, don't give up on the pattern. Once it broke 64, look at that, guys. The very next day on Friday, the stock gaps a little bit lower and then quickly shoots off and starts to rally. See that? And look at that. It stalled out exactly at 64. Right there. At 63.9, if you want to be technical, at 63.94, the stock started to stall out. So it choked right at resistance. And look at that pullback though, guys. This is a very, very bullish looking pullback on the 5-minute chart. It pulled back slowly, constructively, in an organized fashion. It held the 20 period moving average. This is the 5-minute chart. It held that 20 period moving average perfectly. So that to me told me that the stock could be onto something here. If we can see it bounce off this moving average, this tells me that the bulls, might be trying something with this one today. So right away I kept watching it. I kept watching it the whole day. I mentioned it in the chat room several times. I said, guys, keep this one on your watch list. It could be in play very soon. So we kept watching it, and the next thing you know, we had this little breakout from this sort of like little intraday bull flag pattern over here, held the 20 period moving average, a mini bull flag breakout here, and as you can see here, it started to move up. And look at that, guys. So I immediately shot off an email, called it out in the chat room to buy MNST at this price right here, which was around 63.75 area, 63.80. If you got in anywhere around 63.75, 63.80, the alert called for an entry for 63.75. If you entered anywhere between 63.75 and 64, 63.75 and 64, anywhere in this little congestion zone right here, that would have been just fine. Okay, our stop loss, I believe, was right under here. I think it was either right under here or right under here. Either one would have worked, depending on how, if you wanna, how aggressive you want to be with your stop loss. Swing traders probably could have used the stop at the day's lows. Day traders, scalpers, they probably could have used the stop loss here at around the 63.20 area. So either way, enter the stock right here, and one of my top 10 rules, and it's as you'll see it on the website, on the artoftrading.net website. My top 10 rules says the best trades work right away, and this one was literally one of those trades, guys. It did not waste any time at all. You had literally just a couple minutes to get on board before the train started to leave. So right away it started to gather momentum, and as soon as it cleared 64, guys, look at that, the breakout happened at 64. Volume was not that great on the breakout, but like I said, that's okay. You want to give benefit of the doubt to the price. Volume comes in as a confirmation. It doesn't have to be there, necessarily on every trade. It's obviously your confidence would be a lot higher if volume came in, but it's not necessary. You don't have to have it. So right away the stock started to break 64, and look at that, guys, it just never looked back. It just kept running. It broke 64, went to 64.50 right away, which was in the chat room. I called that was my first target there on the trade. So if you're a short-term scalper day trader, that would have been a nice place to take some partial profits right around that 64.50 area, because that was a reasonable first target. So as you can see here, the stock pulled back slightly, and I love how it pulled back slightly. That tells me that the sellers are still not aggressive, and the buyers are coming in even at these high prices. So the pullbacks are very shallow, and they're very quick. Right away, the stock round two breakout keeps running even more, and the stock topped out around 65.50 area. I think we sold half position around 64.50, and then we sold another half around 64.50. So literally we got a little bit lucky on this one because we exited almost near the high on the second batch. But the first batch, to lock in profits, we sold around 64.40, 64.50 area, and then we quickly raised our stop losses just to ensure that this trade does not turn against us now. So as you can see here, we exited, with a nice almost a $1.50 in gains. When you combine the two exits together, if you follow this trade exactly from entry to the two exits, we exited half here and then half almost near the highs of the day. So it was a nice, cool trade. The market was down, so to find a long trade that worked this well on a down day in the market, that was a it's nice little special little trade, and doesn't happen too often. So I just wanted to just do a video and show you guys exactly my thought process throughout this trade. So I hope this helps, guys, and hopefully many more trades like this in the future. Good luck.